screen down to capture like the part of that's, or like move that up, but we're going to allow it to be to be where it is. I can see John also like, if I just reach up and tap this. So I would invite you, if you're in the space and on Zoom, to join us. This is where we bring our voices together and read our mission. Ready? Read. We equip change makers with the tools to look within and actively respond to daily life from a centered place. And our core values are connection, inclusiveness, and love. So these service filters that we put everything through before we offer them to each other here in this space and our community at large. Our vision is to serve as a global community, using contemplative spirituality to heal, renew, and inspire. So as I was praying about and discerning kind of where to go next at this point in the year, I was drawn to a couple of things. A reminder that we are a contemplative community and the transformation that takes place within practice. And Lisa and I were having a conversation, and I was like, gosh, we're a contemplative community. And thankfully, there's been some space to practice with Lisa on Thursdays, but I was like, we're really kind of, at this point, there's an opportunity to practice together. And just given the nature of scheduling and things like that, we've had these pockets before of offerings, but are you going, friend? Okay, love you. Huh? Okay, get some rest. Thank you. We've had these pockets of practice in the past, and right now it feels like there's an opportunity to kind of see what this might look like, to bring it into Sunday morning more intentionally. So my intention as we go forward and as we think about this series, People of Practice, I want to put an emphasis on the people of practice, because what I sense is that by doing this is something that becomes substantive. Am I saying that right? Substantive. I don't know why that was so difficult. Not substantial, but substantive. I was trying to say it's substance, but like a substance. Of substance, yes. I don't know why that tripped me up. And Dennis mentioned substantial. And so substantial focuses on size, amount, or quantity. Like they can mean to think a lot. But substantive focuses on meaning, importance, or essential qualities. So to me, as I think about being people of practice, another way to hear this is like it is something that makes us up, like it's material, it has substance to it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. In thinking about, well, a few things, which I'll get into in a minute. The intention is to invite us into an experiment, really, and an experience based on community interest, questions, needs, and curiosities. And I'll say more about that in a bit. Our flow for today, we're going to start with community questions, and then I want to move on to what I'm calling the shouters and the obstacles. And then I want to share with you a brand new idea in human history, which is actually very ancient. So in the space, that's what this says at the bottom, a brand new idea in human history. So beginning with the community questions, at the end of March, we sent out a brief survey, which essentially asked questions about what your spiritual interests are, What spiritual questions are you holding? What are your spiritual needs? What spiritual practices are you curious about? And as I've been thinking about a lot of my previous truth communications, they have been in response to what's happening in our world, politically, on the issues of justice and things of that nature. And what I sense is that by moving into a more intentional space of practice, then it becomes more than just something that is being said. It becomes something that we activate and carry with us. So just in a future share, I'll go more into kind of general what was shared in those questions that we asked, but just to give you an idea of what's helping to give substance to this. Some of the spiritual interests that were shared had to do with intuition, the wisdom that the body holds, meditation, spending time in nature, understanding scripture as it relates to the world. Some of the questions that came from our community are around the Bible and its creation, creating healthy feedback and growth for diverse communities. What does it mean to be a liberated person? How do I live out my purpose? How do we continue to develop and live out who we are? One of the responses here was, I don't know, which I think is a wonderful response. Like, how much of your journey has been enveloped in mystery and not knowing, and the beauty and the honesty of that question. Like, I'm not sure how to respond to this question, and maybe I don't even know what my questions are. And then the needs of the community that I hope that this more intentionally speaks to have to do with the desire for connection, community, friendship, centering in the midst of seeking approval from others, or like what the umbrella term is distraction over that response, and opportunities to serve. So these have been identified as the needs. And so as we go forward, I'm going to be attentive to what is happening in the world, and also be referring to what you all have expressed as interests, questions, needs as it relates to this. So the way that I see this is this experiment and experience of living into those questions together. And as we go forward, I imagine more questions may emerge or develop, and I would invite them as part of the foundation of how we move forward. But before we move forward, I want to share a little bit about an experience that I've noticed not just this past weekend, but in several different arenas. So it's June, it's Pride Month, and I volunteer for the Houston Pride events, and I have done this for several years. So yesterday was the festival, supposed to be the parade, but it was canceled because of the weather. And not only have I volunteered for these events over the past few years, but in a former version of myself, I worked for a marketing agency that actually sold sponsorships for some of the events in Houston, Pride being one of them. And so I've been involved in some way, shape, or form from a sponsorship side or a volunteer side for many years now. And what I am often intrigued by is the length that this certain group, I'm going to call them the shouters, that the shouters will go through to find a space within the perimeter of this celebration. And essentially what they have are megaphones, signs, printed material, and what they are shouting is about sin and the type of lifestyle people are choosing to lead and all of these types of things. So I've made it a practice to kind of like observe what the shouters are doing. And it just so happened that yesterday, the place where I had parked, you can buy a parking pass for these events, the shouters had positioned themselves right at the pedestrian exit of the garage. So if you bought a parking pass for the festival or the parade, and then you went to participate, you basically had to go by this group of people. And so they're doing what they do with their megaphones and their signs and telling me where I'm going to go, as I come to the top of the platform. And I think I am most intrigued, not most intrigued, but I'm often intrigued by, or maybe anticipating, that one day somebody within this group will put down their megaphone and just kind of turn to the other shouters and be like, I don't think this is working. No one's coming over to talk to us. People are kind of actually like yelling back at us, and like nobody's taking these things that we have printed. Like I just kind of am anticipating that maybe one day there will be a different perspective, and they'll realize the approach of shouting is not being received very well. And this got me thinking, I did make it there, but I was stuck in torrential rain for a moment, as a lot of us were, but I did make it out for an ice cream before the parade was canceled. So I kind of observe this, and there's part of me does desire to like engage with these folks and have conversation with them. I just haven't done that yet. But I think on a broader scale, what I sense is that these things that are being loudly shared through these megaphones, what it actually does is it acts like, when you put magnets together and you put like the wrong side of the magnet together and it like they push away from each other. It feels like that. Like it feels like the volume at which the messages are shared are in relation to like this pushing away. Not a pushing away from the audience that is truly there to celebrate, because in my experience, this happens to be a community that is very in tune with their humanity, very aware of their identity, and very aware that they are loved. So it's not so much this outer, is the word polarization that I'm talking about? It's not this outer polarization. What I have been sitting with is, gosh, what must be going on inside of the person holding that megaphone? How far removed, how far in exile must they, or turmoil is the word that comes up, are they actually holding? And that's some of what is spewing out. So Father Thomas Keating says the only thing that keeps us from, what is the saying? The only thing that keeps us aware, keeps us from knowing that we are a child of God, is this awareness, right? That it's the thought that you are not a child that keeps you separate from it. And so what are the thoughts that they must be harboring inwardly if this is what's coming out from them? And he refers to these hindrances as obstacles. And he talks about them as obstacles to inner freedom, and also describes them as obstacles of grace. And so I want to share a bit of a quote from him. He says, the disintegrating and dying of our false self being the part of us that has over-identified with security, power, and control. He says, the dying of our false self is our participation in the passion and death of Jesus. The building of our new self based on the transforming of power of divine love is our participation in his risen life. And this is where I want to kind of slow down. He says, in the beginning, emotional hang-ups are the chief obstacle to the growth of our new self because they put our freedom into a straitjacket. So I'm going to read that one more time. In the beginning, emotional hang-ups are the chief obstacles to the growth of our new self because they put our freedom into a straitjacket. And so this got me thinking, not only within the context of a pride celebration and people's gender, their sexuality, but this can go broader, right? Like these are categories, so to speak, but this can go broader. And often the messages of not being worthy, of condemnation, of inherent sin rather than inherent goodness are messages that not only are shared on the parade sidelines, but they also come from our sanctuaries and our pulpits, and they often live within our own inner dialogue. This false belief that we are not worthy, that we are not good. And so as we go into this series, what I hope that happens is that through contemplative practice and practicing in community, we become more aware of what I'm going to call the shouters, the inner shouters, and also the shouts that are coming from outside of us, and be able to stand centered and firm in who God has created us to be. And so this brings me to this brand new idea in human history, and I would invite you, I'm going to kind of summarize Genesis 15, and these are verses that this is a chapter that we've looked at before, but it seems worthy of revisiting as we begin this series. So to give you an idea of what's happening here, man, that coffee smells good. Right? It's so aromatic. Okay, so the big bold heading in my Bible is the Lord's covenant with Abram. And essentially what's happening here are a few things. Abram is in conversation with the Lord, and he's essentially saying, you've made these promises to me. I'm going to have heirs and children, and I'm going to be able to bestow my possessions and belongings onto this multitude of children, and I have no children, right? So he's kind of taking up issue with God. And where I want to draw us to in this context is as this dialogue is taking place, right? So one of the things is God says, he took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can imagine, count them all. Then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Now, where I want us to land here is in these verses. let me get to it. Okay. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, this is verse 8. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? He's talking because God has just told him that he's going to have land and take possession of it. So he comes back with a question. How can I know that I will take possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. The birds. The birds of prey came down to the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. It goes on to say, when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces, talking about the pieces of the animals that are cut in half. So a few things to note here. A smoking fire pot and a blazing torch in this context are symbols or evidence of the divine presence. Notice that the Lord says this thing to Abraham, bring me these animals, and Abram doesn't question like, well, why are you asking me to do this? He just goes and gets them, and then somehow seems to know that he's to cut them in half and leave them halved. So this gets to a saying that many of us are familiar with, and it's to cut a deal. To cut a deal. So if you think about now, like if I was to sell you a car, right? Dennis, I'm going to sell you my car. We're going to draw up papers, right? We're going to sign something. Money is going to exchange hands. And if I don't uphold my end of the deal, what is Dennis going to do? Back out of it? What else could he possibly? Sue me, right? He could seek legal. Total car. Dennis is going to come total the car. Tow the car. Okay. And same thing. If Dennis doesn't uphold his end of the deal, then what would I do? Take your car back. Take back possession, right? So in the modern day, we have these ways and means of coming to arrangements and creating deals. But the question comes, in the ancient world, who would you call if someone didn't uphold their end of the deal? Like, there's not necessarily, a tow truck that I'm going to call to come.
Being a deal with tribal, wouldn't they call like tribal leaders?
Maybe a tribal leader.
And that result, I don't know.
So the cutting a deal became a way to say, I'm going to honor my word. Right. I'm going to keep my word. And what the ritual was the two people coming to agreement would pass through the halves of the carcasses, essentially. And the understanding was, if I don't uphold my end of the deal, this is pretty drastic, may I end up like this carcass. Like, this is the extent of covenant, right? So this is the ritual. We walk through, and this is how we create agreement. I'm going to stay true to my word. You're going to stay true to your word. And if either one of us does not, may we end up like this, okay? So the significance here is that Abram knows that this is how deals are made, right? So getting back to the big bold letters, this is the covenant with Abram. And the interesting thing to note is that Genesis 15:17 says, when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking, I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words today. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the two pieces. So one thing to note is that the presence of the divine passes through the pieces alone. It doesn't say that Abram and the Lord pass through. We have this representation of the divine, and the only entity moving through the pieces is the divine presence. This is a radical change in consciousness for people of this time. Marbury talked about like this tribal consciousness, which had a lot to do with what do I need to do to please God? Or the gods? What sacrifice do I need to make to arraign God so that the rain will fall and my crops will be bountiful come harvest season? If I have a bad harvest, then I probably didn't sacrifice enough. So it's this very like, what do I have to do in order to please the divine, make the divine happy, right? So it's a very like one way, hence my arrow here. It's a very one track way of relating. But here we see, so in context, people hearing this would have been like, wait a minute, only God passed through. This would have been a very different way of thinking. So it moves from not only God passing through on God's own, right? So it moves from a God who you do for, from a God who will do for you. So now it's like more dynamic. It's more relationship based. We're in relationship. And the difference here also is that by this smoke and fire pot coming into covenant, this is also expressing something different about the nature of this God, that this God is a God that you can trust and believe is good and has your best interests in mind. It's essentially saying, Abram, even if you mess this up, I'm holding up my end of the deal. Even if things don't go according to how you envision the plan going, I'm holding good to my end of the deal. So it's a story about being in relationship, and it's a brand new idea in human history. But it's a relationship that's not just any relationship. This is a God who is good and kind and generous. This isn't about a relationship that is performance-based. It's not about a relationship that withholds. It's about an intimate relationship, and it's an entirely new way of thinking. It goes from one way, what do I have to do to please God, to, oh, this God is also faithful to me. This God cares about me and has my interest in their heart. So this feels important as we move into this idea of being people of practice, because the one-way consciousness obviously still exists today. And I want to invite us to remember and be aware that there's this brand new idea taking shape and form. There's this new way of coming into covenant and relationship with the divine. And I want us to remember this as we move forward, especially as it relates to the shouting that's taking place. The inward shouting, the outward shouting. And I say this because there's also, which I didn't talk about the last part of our questionnaire, when it comes to the needs. There was an expressed need of navigating relational shifts. So whether that is a new relationship that's forming, where people are like, I am excited about this, and also I don't want to completely like lose myself in this, or relationships that are changing and transitioning in some way. And so I think the reason why I was reminded of this covenant is because as we move forward and navigate like real life stuff, the stuff of life, right? What are the practices that will help us remember that we are in relationship with the divine, even in the shifting relationships of the stuff of life? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask if there's anything the Zoom room would like me to go back to, or questions that you might have. Or in the space.
Is it just for questions?
Oh, no, not necessarily.
I'm thinking about the practices that could be implemented with doing that, and this is really like aligned to what some of the work that I'm already starting to do with myself, and really combating that negative voice that's inside of me. So I think one way to remember the relationship that God has with us is when you have that negative thought, you have to immediately like redirect yourself with a positive thought, whether that be through scripture, whether that be through just taking a moment to pause and remember, sitting with the fact, like, is this actually how God feels about you? Is this actually how this person feels about you if you're dealing with a day-to-day thing?
Yeah.
Just remembering that, like, sometimes we can get in a space of like catastrophizing things and catastrophizing people's reactions, and just remembering like this isn't as bad as what it feels like.
Thank you for voicing that. I'll do my best to re-articulate in case Zoom didn't hear, but what you were speaking about is being aware of like the negative self-talk and how we often can take that talk and things become catastrophic in our lives. So having the presence of mind and heart to be like, where is this thought coming from?
Yeah.
Is it truly catastrophic? And kind of ask those reflective questions, which I think leans to the importance of exploring this together. Is what contemplative practices become is like a spoke in the wheel, because if all that we're used to is the shouters, where is the space to interrupt the shout? And what is the thing that helps us become aware of like, okay, wait a minute. So it's not to say that you capture every thought, but creating the inner, what's the word I'm looking for? Atmosphere, the inner atmosphere where the awareness has room to rise and say, like, let's stop that thought for a second. What else is there in the spaciousness? Which, if you are familiar with the false self in action diagram that we've looked at so many times, that's what contemplative practices do. And then that helps us stop repeating patterns It helps us tap into our creativity. It helps us resource from spaces of abundance, and it helps create new worlds. So thank you for saying that. I also have to share, I am in a really interesting place when it comes to truth communicating. And so I just feel like I need to, to voice that. Yeah, it's been this movement from like not preparing slides to going to an outline. And so I'm kind of like in this in-between space, and I feel like I'm fumbling through a lot of things. So I just want to voice that. I feel like I'm getting my feet up underneath me in some new way that I haven't before. And so anyway, I just feel like sharing that. So I hope something that I said here makes sense. But any other comments or questions? So we'll close with this, that as we go forward in Genesis, we know that Abram becomes who? Abraham. So this is the other piece for us to sit with is Jasmine talked about the question that Jesus asked Legion, what is your name? And so this is deeply connected to the contemplative practice of the breath prayer, which we are not going to practice together today, but we will practice together in the future as a community. And it taps into the transformation that Scripture invites us to. It talks about or taps into the identity piece. What is your name, right? And connecting you to your breath and the breath of the divine, which is one and the same. And so we will practice that together. But keeping that in mind, there's this covenant that is made, and then there is a transformation that takes place. There is a new name that is given. So that's kind of the direction that we're going. Thank you for allowing me to, I feel like a toddler, like I just kind of walked in here and was like, let's talk about cutting a deal. Well, thanks. Thank you. So a couple of other things to share, like on housekeeping notes. So we are going to continue this series for as long as needed. I definitely will be returning to those survey responses. If you'd like to add to the survey with your response, like as we go through this, there will be space for that. I realize I didn't share the responses in their entirety, but there will be space to add. And then also keeping in mind that as we move towards the end of the month, we're going to hear from Lisa, who's going to talk about deepening the well of inner freedom. I will be here for the duration of June. In July, I'm taking my first month-long sabbatical. So I'm sharing that to say coming in here, if you don't see me in July, it's not because I just fell off. Because I was like, what's happening with my life? It's because I'm taking some intentional time away, and we'll be back. And so you will be in good hands. There will still be Solace and Serenity taking place each Sunday. And yeah, it feels important to share that with you all, that I won't be truth communicating the latter part of the month. I will be present, and then I'm taking a little sabbatical.
Can I say something?
Yes.
When you said that about how you feel a shift in the way that you're doing communication, also even when you talked about feeling like a toddler, because I do change management work for me that was exciting.
Oh.
Because when you're on the brink of something new, it feels a little bit like you're toddling.
Thank
I
you.
also think it's exciting that you're now moving into space, right? So when you get into those first steps that feel unsteady, and then you have the space to see what
Thanks,
it
Tawana.
really is and what it really can be.
Yeah.
I think it's. I'm looking forward to.
Thank you for that perspective, because I was driving up 288 like, did I just get my license yesterday? I don't know what's happening, but I appreciate that perspective. Yes.
That's the part of moving into the senior life.
The senior life. Hopefully I become a wise elder.
Just don't go to Home Depot and think you bought something and get home and you're looking for it and you look at the receipt and see you never bought it.
Well, for those of you that may not know, when Dennis came in today, when we were setting up, he was like, "Where's my? What did you call it? My cable." He kept saying, "Where's my cable? Where's my cable? I just had it." And I was just like, I don't know what Dennis did with that cable. Well, I picked it up and used it. So he was like for 15 minutes looking for this extension cord, and I'm like, I don't know what Dennis did with that thing. Oh. Oh, but thankfully it all worked out.
Bathroom and forget you had to go to the bathroom and come back and sit down and remember, oh, I had to go to the bathroom.
Oh goodness. Okay, it is getting warm in here, and we're going to move into our offering moment and prayer requests. So, just a quick. I'm excited to read the chat. Thank you all. Okay, our offering moment. So let me give a quick update, because we are in a new month. Oh, continue to share. Why is this? I don't know why it does that. Okay, let me share this way. We were just plugging along fine. So just some reminders of the way that you can support Awakenings financially through your giving. This needs to go away. All right, here we go. There's text to give. Text to give works this way. You text AWAKEN and then the amount that you would like to give to this number, 832-481-4434. You can make a one-time gift or set a recurring gift. That's all. The text to give is managed through the Secure Give platform. Secure Give is also an app. You can find all of these ways to give on our website, which is awakeningsinc.org. We also have Cash App. On Cash App, we are Awakenings Movement. On Venmo, we are Awakenings-Inc. And to give an idea of where we ended with May and where we are for June. So in April and May, we fell short of our budget. So our budget was $6,446. The number that you see there was reflective of half of the shortage in April, which was essentially divided. And now what you see for our June budget is taking the deficit in May and April and dividing it across the rest of the year. So our June budget is $5,359. When we fulfill that number, then obviously it helps keep us in a place of good financial standing. And so thank you all for the ways in which you contribute and continue to give. No one is judging what you're giving on the backside of things, it's all being received with gratitude and stewarded intentionally.